Well, good morning, everyone. Make sure. Shane, are we good on sound? Because it doesn't sound like it. We're okay? All right, good. My name is Rosalind Shalisky, and I teach journalism here at Laramie County Community College. And this is the first of 3 faculty forums that we're going to have this week with our candidates for the Vice President of Academic Affairs. And gosh darn, it's so good to see so many faculty here on a Monday morning and 2 weeks before D-Day when school starts again. Let me tell you what I would like you guys to do when we get to the question part. Would you, we're going to pass the mic around, but we are streaming this on the Wingspan Ustream account. And if you will just say your name and what area you represent. Do you want to know how long they've been here too? Maybe would that be something?
Be nice, yeah.
And how long, that way you know if they're new to the campus or, yeah, okay. And the other thing I'd like to do is to thank the Wingspan online staff for being here. Suzanne Robbins is here this summer, and she's been streaming this for us. And there is also a live email, so I will be checking that once in a while. You'll see me racing over there to check to see if we have any emails that any faculty who are off campus would like to submit. With that, let me tell you about our first candidate, and this is Dr. Kimberly Farley. She told us at breakfast today that only her mother calls her Kimberly, okay? And the other thing that we found out about her was that she actually used to come to Frontier Days because she has some shirt-tail relations that actually live here in Cheyenne. So she would come over for family reunions with her father bringing boatloads of trout to cook. So, so she is familiar with our not with our campus, but with the city. She also said that the one thing she remembered about being in Laramie is that you would drive to Cheyenne to go shopping, and then you would also drive to Fort Collins to go shopping, and also to see spring, right? It was always a month ahead. So let me, for the record, just give you some information about her. She has served as the Associate Dean of Mathematics and Natural Science at Milwaukee Area Technical College since 2001. Prior to that, she worked as an environmental scientist, regulatory specialist, and policy analyst in the environmental and engineering energy consulting field for 12 years. Her academic credentials include a doctorate in political science and a master's of public administration, both from Texas Tech University in Lubbock. And we've been talking about Texas connections this morning. And she has a bachelor's of science degree in political science from the University of Wyoming. Her graduate degrees have emphasized environmental and energy policy. She's played a significant role in developing science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This is a new term I've heard called STEM programs at the place where she is right now, bringing in more than $3.5 million in federal grants to aid curriculum development in mathematics, biotechnology, chemistry, and water resources, promoting undergraduate research through internships with university and business partners, developing pathways to water careers for high school and 2- and 4-year college students, as well as existing and displaced workers, training high school students and teachers and counselors in biochemical lab techniques, and preparing more teacher education students to become math teachers. We talked at breakfast a great deal about the problems of math preparedness, right? She has taught undergraduate and graduate courses at several colleges and universities, presenting courses in American government, public policy, public administration, public and nonprofit budgeting, intergovernmental relations, law and society, environmental and energy policy, environmental science, and environmental law. So do you want to start with questions, or do you want to make a few comments first? What would you like to do?
Well, make a few comments.
Okay, well, I'll have you make a few comments. And then because we are recording this, we're going to need to pass the mic around. So if you don't mind doing that. All right, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you for inviting me here to speak today, and also thank all of you for turning out today, those of you who aren't regular administrators who have to be here every day, but teachers who I understand your semester ended last week, so you're on vacation now. So welcome anyway. Thank you for coming out today, and I look forward to talking to you and finding out what your concerns are, what your questions are, and however I can answer these. So I thought it was interesting at one point there was somebody back there with a Broncos shirt and somebody else with a Jets shirt, so I wondered if it was a Tim Tebow past and present thing or what was going on. So I've been a football fan for years. I grew up with the Broncos, so I've always been excited to watch them. My son was always upset because he's somehow, we don't know how, a Tennessee Titans fan. And he felt that they show way too much Bronco TV or Bronco games in Wisconsin as compared with Titans games. But it's kind of fun to watch those, and we both really enjoyed the Packers as well. So football's a good thing in the fall, so I'm looking forward to seeing how Peyton Manning does. Okay, other stuff now.
All right, questions from the group here. I feel like Oprah Winfrey.
How will you go about assuring academic quality in our concurrent enrollment courses, our online courses, and our face-to-face courses?
One of the things that we were talking about at breakfast this morning, I was asking how you do student outcomes assessment here, and I understand that this is a somewhat new process for all of you, and that you weren't really sure about the outcomes for it yet until you've had a little bit more time to get into the system. So I think that's one thing is taking a look at what you're doing now, and then really looking at how this can be applied. That's the big step, is what are you learning once you collect this data, is what you're learning from the data, and then how your departments and how your courses can activate this and make some meaningful changes. I think it's important that we have to have faculty buy-in on all of this, because if you've got 2/3 that are going with it, you're still missing the other third out there who may not be making the changes into their course that really need to be made. So I think it's important that we get everybody involved in the process and then go from there. But you know, data is only as good as what you do with it, and I think that's the important thing, is starting to use it for some purpose and then see where changes need to be made, what you're doing right, and what we learn, and move on from there.
Okay. Do I have somebody else with a question? Okay. Can you tell me what you think the role of Faculty Senate should be?
I would like to see a faculty senate. Right now we're in a joint governance situation at Milwaukee Area Technical College, and in some ways I feel that if the faculty were more united in a policy-making type of a group, that it might be a little bit better than what we have right now. We have equal representation on all of our core committees, so there is always an administrator, and then there is always a represented individual, whether it's a teacher or an administrative assistant, depending on which committee that we're looking at. So what generally happens is that our union, which is very strong, will put people on the committee who are very strong union people, and I'm not sure that it's always necessarily productive. It becomes a little bit more of a tug of war. And I think if you had a faculty senate where a lot of people had an opportunity to participate, and not just always those who are just adamantly pro-union and this is the way it's going to be, that we would be able to hear from other teachers. And I think sometimes other teachers get drowned out in the process because and they can't go against their union, but I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe. We have an extremely strong teachers union at MATC, and I I know there are a lot of people out there who don't necessarily agree with where the union is headed, but they can't really speak out at the same time because of the way that process is set up. I think a faculty senate would be really nice just in terms of getting a bigger collection of opinions and working with the administration maybe in a different way than sometimes happens with our core committees. So I welcome opinions. I work with my departments. I work with other divisions. A lot of times work with teachers in other divisions. And I like to get to know them one-on-one. I also like to know what they're thinking independently of what the union might be telling them to think sometimes. So from that standpoint, I think a faculty senate would be a really big change from what I've been used to for the past 11 years. And I think it would be an interesting way to work with teachers.
Okay, is there someone else with a question? I should have got my running shoes, my Olympic shoes on here.
Hi, Kim. I'm here representing a couple of our folks who weren't able to make it today, and we wondered, how do advisory boards play a role in the quality improvement of your programs?
The advisory boards are really important for us because also we're more of a technical college and you're very community college focused, I think. On the technical side, the advisory committees come in and help to determine the direction of curriculum at our college. My own particular, best experience, I would say, learning experience as far as what an advisory committee has helped in this process is with my own chemical technology advisory committee. I head up that program. And because that industry is changing so much over the past several years, and we were looking at the equipment that we had and the curriculum that we had, and decided that a DACM was necessary. And I don't. Is everybody familiar with DACM? It stands for designing a curriculum. And what happens in that process is we'll get a number of local practitioners come in, and we want people from all levels. We want people from the management level. We want middle management. We want technicians. And then we take a look at the direction that the industry is headed right now and what skills do students need to have. What equipment would we possibly need in order to train the students on these new skills? Are there additional courses, general education courses, for example, that might help to better prepare a student to function in the 21st century? So once we take a look at all of these, and a DACM will cover an entire wall. They'll just be, everybody will be putting out suggestions of, here's how you function as a lab tech. Here's some of the changes that we need to make. You have somebody that facilitates this process, and then at the end, we essentially have a new curriculum put together and the direction that we need to take. It's usually a day or two process to really map this out. So as a result of the DACM that we had for the ChemTech program, we determined that there were a number of changes that needed to be made in our program to make sure that it was updated. And we were fortunately able to write a grant to get some of the new equipment that we needed, and also got the college to build new labs for us because ours were really outdated. So now we've got just these tremendous facilities, and we have a great grant coming in, or that we just got not too long ago too, that is helping to attract more students into the ChemTech field. We have 100% job placement on our students because our advisory committee has been so supportive, and they, I think we probably have one of the most active committees in the college, but they come in for the meetings, they hire our students, they place our interns. They have been helpful in terms of providing equipment as well. So this is what I see from some of the other advisory committees that I've been involved with. I've been involved as well with a massive state realignment, reorganization of the Gen Ed core across Wisconsin. And the Wisconsin Technical College system is made up of 16 colleges. So we were trying to get the courses gen ed courses aligned among these 16 schools. So when my end was math and science, I had to go around to all of the other divisions. We have 5 divisions at MATC, and talk to those advisory committees and talk to the lead faculty and make sure that they understood, here's where the math changes are going to occur. Here are the new science courses. We can no longer have math for carpenters. We can no longer have math for plumbers. We can't have physics for nurses. It has to be a general physics course. It has to be, you know, college algebra or whatever of these courses that we have set up. This was a big shock to a lot of these people because we've always been very technically focused that way. So that was one of my big jobs, was working with those advisory committees to make sure they knew what the new curriculum was, how it was going to affect them, and how it would be good for their students.
I have a follow-up question. When implementing changes to curriculum, what support do you provide for faculty who are bearing the load of those curriculum changes?
What we were doing in that particular case was I was going around to all of the department meetings, for one thing, to let them know what these changes were going to be. We provided them with what we call the course outcome summaries, which are the broad framework of these new courses that had been developed, to let them know that here's what the changes are going to be. And in some cases, like with some of the engineering programs, because they have prerequisites to some of their engineering courses that are math courses, we needed to make sure that they understood how these math courses would align with their engineering courses, to make sure that all the content was in there that they would need in order to do their like electrical engineering courses. So usually in those cases, I'll make sure that I have faculty who are actually teaching the new courses that are going over and meeting with the new instructors, so they can sit down and work out any changes that might have to be made, so that they all understood them. But I guess if I'm understanding your question correctly, we really have 2 groups here. We have, first of all, the faculty who are actually teaching the new courses, the new math and science courses in my areas, and then the faculty in the other divisions whose programs are going to be affected by these new courses. So are you talking about everybody in general, or are you talking about those who are actually teaching it?
Well, you just clarified all the ways that you would clarify the demand you're placing on faculty. What resources did you give to those faculty?
Okay, we had core committees in the math department for each one of the new courses, and those committees get together and they write the curriculum. They write all of the tests because the math department wants standardized tests. They write the homework. They put together a packet for instructors. There's when you go into that file, there's a big read me first, so they know things that they need to be looking out for that we want to have done in the course. There is a sample, there's a course syllabus that they're using as well. So all of this is put together, and then the committees were holding training sessions. Not all of the courses needed them, but when our pre-algebra and our elementary algebra courses especially were being put together, these are our, I mentioned in the last meeting, our bread and butter courses, and I'll run about 40 sections a semester just of pre-algebra. There's such a huge demand for it. So we do hold training sessions for those instructors. There's new software that's coming in that we want to make sure that everybody is implementing this and we're all on the same page with it.
And that's all in addition to their teaching load. Do you give course releases for curriculum development, or is that all service?
Some of it is service. What they're doing this summer, for example, with the pre-algebra, there's like 3 training days, and it'll be like a morning that they have to come in and do that. It's very hard to catch people during the regular school year. We might get them for an hour, but just because there's so many teachers trying to coordinate that, even with setting up a few dates, it becomes difficult. There is no release time for that. The only people that get release time would be approved by the provost, or if they are a new instructor where there is additional release time. Our structure, people used to be paid for these things, and currently with our structure, they're not. So it's a voluntary thing. I do get in touch with instructors, and I explain to them why it's really important that we need their participation in it. But I can't pay anything or do anything like that.
Can I follow up on what your thoughts on faculty development? And should it be required? Should it be, what do you do in times of limited resources, that kind of thing? Okay.
I'm coming out of a completely different system where the faculty development is concerned.
I guess my question is, if you had your druthers and you were here rather than at
here
Milwaukee.
than there, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Right. So because I do understand the union concept that you're talking about, but in a non-union place, what do you think about faculty development? How should that be approached?
I would like to encourage faculty development wherever I can, and I think the important thing is, first of all, looking at who you're bringing in. I was looking at your job site last night because I was kind of curious about what the requirements were for full-time instructors and part-time instructors, and I think I found one full-time HIT person, and then they were 3 adjuncts over in the Albany County campus, just to get a sense of that. But new instructors, especially, I understand that you have a new process for really getting your new full-time instructors up to speed, or your with your new human resources person hoping to get more of this done. With all of the existing instructors, what I would really like to do in a coaching process is talk to them about where it is that they feel that they want to be going and what additional training they feel is necessary. This is something I do in my own faculty coaching process, and in some cases we've been able to find additional funds in the college to send them to a training someplace or a conference someplace if this is going to help them with a course that they're wanting to modify, a course that they would like to create. So a lot of times resources can be reallocated, and I think it's an idea of looking at what's available in the college. I've got a budgeting background, so budgets are something I really pay attention to as well, and see what we could do from that standpoint. Social media is a big thing these days, and a lot of things can be done for free if we can find the right resource out there that might be beneficial to an instructor. I think we really need to just talk one-on-one in a lot of cases and see what might be possible, and then prioritize where we need to. I know money is short, it's short all over, but I think there are creative ways that we can do this, and social media is one of them. I understand University of Wyoming also provides some tuition cuts in order to do professional development. I think there are different ways that this can be approached, but I'd like to see people grow. Teaching shouldn't just be, I'm going to teach my course and I'm going to teach it this way for 25 years. Our students have changed in 25 years, and we need to make sure that we're keeping up with them as well.
Okay. And remind you guys to tell names and stuff.
My name is Mary Guthrie. I'm an adjunct English instructor, and I've been here about 6 years. And talking about money reminds me, on your CV, it's indicated that you were very successful in getting some grants. How would you propose to get grants for an entity like LCCC?
Same way that I've done it at MATC. A lot of it is just making sure that we know what resources are out there. If it's, in my end, it's really been math and science. So the National Science Foundation has been huge in this regard. But there are Department of Education grants. There are, I'm sure, State of Wyoming grants as well that can be pulled in. A lot of private foundations these days, if you go out to them. General Electric is a good example in Milwaukee where we've been able to pull in money. A large manufacturer or corporation in Cheyenne There may be opportunities to reach out there and see if they would be willing to make donations. This is a big thing, so grants don't always have to come from the government. There's always, things like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for that matter. So lots of ways that money can come in. One of the things that I wanted to look at or talk to somebody about while I'm here was your grants office. There wasn't a lot of information on the website, so I couldn't tell a lot from that, but I would be interested to know more what kind of grant support there is, because I think it's a huge way to bring in funding for colleges. I think your energy program has benefited from grants, if I remember reading correctly. So, it doesn't all have to be about the college providing money. There's a lot of ways that other money can be provided. One of the things that I've done in terms of changing position descriptions for full-time instructors is we can't require it, but I do say grant experience is desirable if you have that. I also will put in the position description that you may be required to participate in grants from time to time. I've got a small group of faculty that work on these projects, and it's just tremendous what they've been able to do. It's really helped them to grow. It's really extended MATC's reach out into the community because of the different groups that they've been involved with. So from a standpoint of faculty growth, I think grants are big. It's not just about getting money to the faculty, but it's about expanding what the faculty are able to do as a result of the grant.
One of the questions that we had sent to us was your thoughts on remedial courses being offered online.
That probably says it all. I think if somebody is in a remedial class, there's a reason for it, and I really feel that they need to have that reinforcement. Online requires a lot of discipline. It requires, I think, that you come in with a certain level of knowledge. If you're in a remedial course, a lot of times you need a lot of feedback. You're going to need some direct help and quick help that you're not always going to be able to get in an online situation. So because of the number of remedial courses that we do have at MATC, and I was mentioning in my last meeting that Milwaukee Public Schools, which is a big feeder for MATC, is really a school district in crisis. There are a lot of problems, and about at least 2/3 of the students who come from MPS to MATC are going to place into remedial courses, and it's probably higher than that. So our remedial courses are there to help these students. A lot of them don't have computers at home. I was mentioning that 80% of them qualify for federal school lunch program, so there is just dire poverty there. And when this is the group without the computers that needs the remedial help, they need to be at the school. They need to be talking to the teachers. They need to be getting that constant reinforcement because they haven't gotten it at home. There's just been a big history of families in poverty, and then the next generation is in poverty, and the high dropout rates. And if you don't have that parent at home that has had even a high school education, sometimes I just don't see how remedial works outside of the classroom unless you are an extremely responsible self-starter type of a person. But I don't see a lot of those where I am. And I know there are some remedial courses in different places around the country that are online. And I haven't looked at those really hard, but I just know what our student base is like and why I'd prefer to have direct teacher help for them.
You got one? Let me do advising, and then I'll come back to you, okay? All right. Just because I don't have many steps left in my life there, okay? With advising, let me just kind of throw this be academic advising. Should all faculty be academic advisors? Should they be compensated, if not all, if it's not part of your load, should they be compensated in some way? should you have a day set aside for a non-teaching day, set aside for academic advising? Am I missing an advising part of this? It's the whole advising question.
That's a multi-pronged question.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yes, and there. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the requirement of all faculty as well as the requirement of
Okay.
of students.
All right, so
yeah.
faculty requirement, student requirement, advising day, and compensation.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll about do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. President, when did you stop beating your wife? Yeah. Okay. Small journalism
Okay.
joke. Sorry.
On one end, I would like to see all faculty advising because I think this should be a normal part of your teaching load. And I am talking about all full-time faculty, actually, and not adjuncts. But I've got some adjunct faculty that would make terrific advisors if that was part of their responsibility. And I know they provide advice to students anyway. That being said, that I think all of them should be taking part. There are some faculty who are born advisors and just are terrific at it, and there are others that I'm not sure I would want them advising me. There's some that's it's their calling, and it's their duty. And when I'm sitting down and talking with a student in my office, when some of them will come through once in a while and say, I haven't been able to get in touch with my advisor, and could you help me? So I'll talk to them, but I want to know a lot more than what's just on the page in front of me. I want to know, what are your plans? Because I'm the mother of 2 college students, and I want to make sure that my kids aren't having to repeat courses or to take courses that they don't need. And I'm paying for their college, and I'd like to get the most bang for my buck. And I know that they want to move on in their career, so, why are we spending all this extra time by taking the wrong courses? So from that standpoint, I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and that's what I would really like my advisors to be able to do too, and not just, okay, you have to take math, you have to take English, you have to take this, and then this becomes their advising. That's not advising to me. So I think all of them should be doing it. I think this should be a part of being a full-time instructor, but I think there are some who are better at it than others. The second part was should all students be required to get advising?
First of all, should there be a day set aside in the academic calendar for advising?
I sort of like that because I think it puts more of a focus on advising so that everybody is aware that this is the day. But I also know how full calendars are. And when teachers want the time to teach, or if they don't want to have, I don't know how your days work out here. We have your regular semester, and then there are 3 non-teaching days. And so those days get filled up really quickly. So I'm not sure how many non-teaching days you are required in your contract. If there is room, an advising day would be kind of nice just to put the emphasis on it and make sure everybody was available and students knew that they could come. But by the same token, I think it can be done with a lot of advertisement and signs around the school and emails and Facebook and Twitter and everything else to make sure that students know this is advising week or whatever time period we want to designate for it. We have also done something called the advising marketplace, that when we get around the time of registration, our early registration for the next semester, we have teachers that volunteer from the various departments. They have tables set up in the hallways, and students will come to this commons area and they can get advising there. Because if they haven't been able to get in touch with their instructor for whatever reason, or they really haven't tried that hard, a lot of times if these tables are set up around the registration area, it's a reminder to them that oh, I needed to talk to somebody about this history course, and now I can find out what the prerequisites are, or how this would fit in. Talk with a history teacher, talk with a math teacher. So I kind of like that because it gets the teachers out there again too, and they get an opportunity to see some of the other issues that students are dealing with when it comes to getting advice. So honestly, I'm not sure that an entire day needs to be taken up for it, but I think there are ways that you can make sure that advising is very prominent and that people are participating in it.
And should it be mandatory for students?
I was mentioning again in the meeting this morning, a lot of these conferences that I attend, I have, because of the NSF grants that I have to be in Washington twice a year for conferences. And every time I go to these breakout sessions and people are presenting grant results, they keep talking about intrusive advising and how intrusive advising is what really seems to make the difference for their students, helping to keep them on track, get them in the right courses, and see where they are. And I think there are a lot of students that just run into the problem of self-advising, and then they spend more time, they spend more money, they create a whole lot more frustration for themselves, which is probably not going to result in retaining them sometimes down the road, because they haven't talked to somebody who knew and could really help them. So I do like mandatory, but I recognize it's a lot harder to do, I think, in a community college situation than it is in a four-year, just with different schedules, different expectations. And so one of the things I haven't done is actually to go out and take a look at community colleges and see who might be doing this. I mean, a lot of them now are capturing the at-risk students. We were talking about that this morning too. They come in and they're identified as being, at or below the poverty level. If they're a single parent, if they have children, if they're working while they're going to school. This would be a group, it'd be really nice to capture them. And Sinclair Community College, which I visited a few years ago, was doing that, and I thought that was terrific because that is such a large percentage of the students that we have at MATC fall into that category, and I think they could be helped that way.
Thank you. Mr. Patience over here.
Hi, Kim. It's Trent Morrell again,
Hi.
Instructor of Geosciences. I just wanted to piggyback onto the remedial online question, and also something you mentioned earlier about the rapidly changing instruction environment, especially at the community college. And my question deals with the use of technology in the classroom and online and hybrid. Do you support, embrace that, and particularly with math and sciences, what kind of your philosophy there? And would you support faculty going and getting training in this, whether it's in-house or external, and really encourage them to use that technology, and students as well?
Yes, I do support that. I came into online kind of reluctantly at the beginning because I could see, I think I could see more problems than I could see benefits when I was first looking into this. And my big thing right off the bat was, well, how do you know who's really taking that course on the other end? But I had the opportunity to take an online, a course to train teachers to be online instructors. And I had also been part of the MATC group that wrote the rubric for developing a good online course and what we wanted to see. We still are not as, don't require as much upfront of our online teachers as other places do that I've been looking at, and I would like to see more training. But since that time, since writing the rubric, I've taken two courses on online teaching. One of them was at this other technical college that I teach part-time at, and they do require all of their teachers to take this course, and it was just a tremendous course, and I kept everything that I had from that, because things that I never thought about before about, how do you make a course ADA accessible online? You never think about those. So that was that was an eye-opening experience that way, and how I could build other things and tools into my course. I'm currently taking another one of those through another college that does a lot of online. It's a 4-year college, but they also do a lot of 2-year, and they also require all their online instructors to take this course. So I'm sort of taking some parts of this over, and I'm learning new things as a result. I would really like to see any school that has online courses and really wants to grow those courses, that this be a requirement for teachers coming in, because I've said before that I don't like the idea of a teacher coming in and loading a course cartridge that was created by the publisher and plugging it in and putting it on autopilot and you know, kind of collecting their paycheck at the end of the semester. There's so much more to it than that, and I think teachers need to realize what online really is. Some people will think it's easier, but it's not. I can tell you for sure it's not. I put in huge number of hours into my online course.
Just to add to that, and somebody may have this question, but what are your feelings on then workload for faculty that are designing? I mean, a good online course does take a lot of work. Those of you that teach know that, as opposed to just loading a cartridge or something. But what are your feelings on the workload for faculty that's designing one from scratch? Is that something that should be part of their workload? Release time, compensation? I mean, we've talked about that here. Other schools do certain things, some schools don't.
Mm-hmm.
What are your feelings on that?
I think part of it depends on how badly that course is needed. If it's something that could really change the direction of a program or start a new program, this is where I could possibly see a college compensating an instructor for doing that. If it's a course that already exists and you're putting it online, this might be a little bit different situation. It could be that you could have ownership of that course for a while. It could be that you maintain ownership of all of the materials, so if anybody else taught it, it would be up to them to develop those materials. If the college paid you for it, then I would see the college as owning those materials. Release time would be a possibility. I guess one of the things I didn't ask this morning was I wondered what constitutes a load for a full-time instructor here?
15 hours.
15 hours, okay. And so this is all determined by number of credits?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Ours is all percentage, so it's a different kind of a system, so I wondered. But release time might be a possibility depending on how involved this got, or is it something that could really be developed over the summer? I think I would say it depends on the circumstances, but I think we would have to look at different options there, and I would be open to doing an exploration of how other colleges do this and what might work out for this one.
I just kind of want to piggyback on that. You said earlier about advising. Yeah, I'm English. So.
Okay.
You said earlier that advising should be a normal part of an instructor's load, and then we're talking again about normal instructor loads. So I'm just wondering what you envision as a typical instructor's load in terms of service, in terms of how many credit hours. I know that varies from school to school, but do you have an idea of what you mean by that when you say a normal load?
Well, I think in a normal load, an instructor should be providing service back to the college community in some way, and also to the community at large, to Cheyenne or wherever they might be. And there are some, and I'm going to get back to the idea of, you know, there are some people that are born salespeople that might be very good with working with groups within Cheyenne, and that's an important outreach that we need. There are others that are excellent working with students that might be better on the advising end. So I don't want to say that an instructor load with those community service type of hours is going to be hard and fast, because I think we should look at where your strengths are. But I'd also want to make sure that every instructor was here for a department meeting. That's important that they do that. If there are college-wide meetings, instructors need to be here for that, and that should be an expectation. Grants that I mentioned before, I write those into my position description. So not for all instructors, but for some, if they weren't doing maybe service learning in the community, they're doing a lot with the grants. So in your 15 hours, this is, that's 5 courses, 5 3-credit courses. And then do you have additional time that's required beyond that? Like, I'm assuming you'd have to hold office hours. That's
Right.
important. So if you've got 5 hours of office hours to go with 5 courses? 7, okay. And then beyond that, because we're just up to, what, 20 hours, 22 hours a week here?
Well, we're expected to be, you know, to be active in our professional organizations and community organizations and things like that.
Okay,
And campus organizations in terms of serving on committees.
right, right. Oh, and yes, committee service is critical if the campus is going to run, and we've got to have everybody's input on it. So, yes, in my own situation, the teachers are required to be there 32 hours a week. And this kind of, you know, most of them are going to be teaching between 15 and 18 hours, depending on if they're doing 3-credit courses or if they're doing lab courses. And so then they're required to put in 4 to 5 office hours a week, depending on their percentage load, and it's a complex formula I won't get into. And then the rest of that after that is considered to be on-campus time. And that on-campus time might involve your committee service, it might involve your department meetings, student advising, any additional types of activities that you might be involved with, going out into the community and doing service learning. So it kind of depends there, but I think everybody as a full-time especially has an obligation to serve the college first, to serve the community as well. But I would like to see it flexible enough so that it plays to people's strengths, because I think it all becomes important there in one way or another.
Okay. Let me ask this question. This is let's try this as a scenario, all right? The theater department is putting on a play. It's a play by a well-known playwright, and it was advertised for mature audiences. They've had 1 weekend, and there's a donor who calls and says that he is upset with some of the 4-letter words that are used, and he plans to take away some funding, and he's been talking to the president. So now the president calls you in, and you're going to do what?
Wow. Oh goodness, you know, you're not going to make everybody happy all the time. There's no way it's ever going to happen. This is a well-known playwright. This issue has probably come up before in other forums, and we won't be the first if that happens. But you know, it becomes censorship as far as I'm concerned. I think that there's expression that needs to take place, and if they feel that this play is important to the development of your theater students, and there are certainly going to be people in the Cheyenne area that are going to agree and to want to come to see this because it's an important play. I'm just thinking of something like the Laramie Project, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, it's a good, good example.
Yeah. I don't think that, I don't know. The messages and the way that messages are conveyed in this society are very different than the way that they used to be. I think some of them could get by without some of the language that's in them, but it's what our society, a lot of it finds to be acceptable today, and we move on. If I would like to think that there would be some way to placate the donor, but I also feel that we don't want to censor what could be a really important message, and if it was the Laramie Project, for example, I'd hate to see that one go down. I'm just thinking of the scene with the angels and there and blocking the view, and how that's been played out in military funerals around the country because of the Westboro Baptist Church that goes and protests, and the same people down in Aurora the other day doing that. there's always going to be people out there that disagree with things going on, and that Westboro group has chosen their way to do it, but others have come out and said, you know, we support what these people are doing, or we support the fact that this person was a soldier for our country, and you know, we're gonna support them. You're not gonna make everybody happy. I'm not sure how to answer that. But
That's okay. And let me ask you. You played. You're kind of a mathy person, right? but you have played in the high school and UW University of Wyoming band. And what did you play?
Clarinet.
Clarinet. Do you still play?
No, I had a lot of dental work done one time after a car accident, and my bite just isn't what it
Yeah, we got
what
a
it was
trombone player
before,
over here, so
Oh,
she
okay.
understands.
I want to be reincarnated as a drummer. I always thought they had a lot of fun.
Okay. All right, great. And this is our very brand new American citizen here.
Congratulations. Hi.
This is Juan Antonio Bernabeu, Modern Languages. I have a couple of questions for you. Number one, I would like to know from you, what will you do to make sure that communication between the administration and the faculty is both clear and effective? That's an issue that still lingers in our institution. And the other thing is, what will you do to make sure that the people that are hired in this institution really understand or are providing information in regards to their responsibilities? Let me tell you my case. I was hired, and then I found out that I was responsible for some other things that I didn't have a clue about. If I have known, sincerely, I don't know if I will have gotten the job in the first place, but I was told that way afterwards, almost a year after. So my question is in regard to those two things: communication, make sure the clear expectations are understood, and how you make sure that take place.
Okay.
Do you need a translation on that, or?
No, I
Okay,
got
you
that.
got it? Okay.
I was just, I was thinking of a great joke on that second part of that, because there was something about a person was being recruited for a position, and they said, you get to spend one day in heaven and another day in hell. And so they go down to hell, and everybody's just having a great time down there, and they're playing golf and having parties, and then they go to heaven, and heaven looks pretty nice, and they're on clouds and playing harps and just enjoying life. And so they get back to earth the next day, and they said, okay, you know, where do you want to go to? Do you want to go to heaven, or do you want to go to hell? And I said, you know, heaven seemed like a really nice place, but I think I'd prefer hell. And so they send them to hell, and people all look miserable, and the flames are burning, and they're all, you know, working hard. And I said, well, what happened to this place? And they said, well, yesterday you were being recruited, and today you're an employee. So, sorry, that just popped in my head when you were saying that. But anyway, I hire, I'll start with that one first, but I hire lots of instructors. I supervise 238 full and part-time instructors. And in math and science, the areas that I'm responsible for, I'm usually hiring between 6 and 12, and on one semester I remember 17 new instructors in one semester. And it almost becomes like a factory sometimes, because, and with part-timers, I'm kind of bringing them to my office sometimes, and I call it combat hiring, but bring them in and do a quick interview with them, and then I'm practically handing them the textbook at the same time and saying, you know, you're hired. But I have really done my utmost, because I say that I throw them in the deep end, and most of them have been able to swim, but I do my utmost to try and prepare instructors, whether they're full-time or part-time, for what is to come. I spend a lot of time with them if I possibly can. Otherwise, I have put together a lot of information. I've got contact sheets for all of our 4 campuses, so that they know who the liberal arts secretary is and what she can do for them, who the lead instructor is in the area that they're going to be teaching, and with their contact information, who's the instructional chair if they're teaching a science course, who's the educational assistant. So all of that contact information, as well as the campus dean, is available to them. I give them textbooks. I assign them to an instructor so that they've got that, you know, if they know that they can call that person on the weekend, especially a part-timer who's trying to get up to speed quickly. They know that they can always contact me. I've gone out of my way to get materials to instructors. I drove 80 miles one day just to drop off a couple of textbooks because I was so happy this person was going to teach anatomy and physiology for me. So I will do whatever I can for instructors to get them up to speed. I understand that LCCC is going to be working on this as well with their new, was this person hired or are they coming in? Was that, I didn't get that. HR?
I don't know.
Coming
They're
in.
coming
Okay.
in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So it sounds like this is something that's going to be worked on here as well. And I have worked very closely with human resources at MATC because I do hire more people than anybody else in the college to make sure that the teachers that I'm responsible for are having a good experience when they come in. And they know they can always contact me if they have questions. I'm a night owl. I am online. I do go to bed at some point, but I don't like to be surprised the next day. So I'll usually check email before I go to bed just to make sure that you know, somebody isn't out there sick and needing a sub or something the next day. So that was one part, and the other one was communications. I am really strong on communications with my faculty because I have so many of them. Email tends to be my big thing, but if there are policies that are being handed down by the provost's office or changes in the wind that they need to know about, or just your basic semester startup email with issues that they need to be aware of and possible changes from the previous semester, I make sure that all of that information is out there. One of the things I would like to look harder at is how I could use social media for that same type of thing. Some of my emails get a little bit long, and I'm trying to cut down on that, but there's a lot that I need to say. When we were implementing the Higher Education Opportunity Act not too long ago, it was going to have big changes on the way that we handled textbooks and supplementary materials at our college. So I had to put together something that would spell all this out for them so that everybody understood. It was a very complex change, but I wanted to make sure that they knew what it was. I also go around to all the department meetings, and I'll get myself on the agenda for those when I need to and present other information. But I've always tried to let teachers know as quickly as I could what's going on. I don't want them to be surprised. I want them to be participating in whatever these changes are and not feel like it got dropped on them with no preparation.
Okay, we got one. Meredith, you got one?
I'm Meredith Rares. I'm in Education, Natural, and Social Sciences. It sounds like you have a very hands-on management style, and that you're involved personally in many different matters in your division or department or whatever you call it at MATC. I was just wondering if you could describe to us how you see your management style and how you work to not be overwhelmed by all of your duties.
I am a hands-on person. I'm a person that believes in walking the talk. That's kind of my management style. I don't like to ask people to do things that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've always gotten along really well with my instructors is they don't feel that I'm just hanging them out there with various jobs. When I was mentioning the advising marketplace, a lot of times I go out there and help the instructors on that just because it's fun to be working with them in a little bit different way. And I also get to see at the same time some of the student concerns and see how the instructors are working with the students too. If there's something that I can mention to an instructor, if I hear them saying something to a student and I can talk to them later and say, hey, did you know about something else that you could have mentioned to them? So I like getting to know them in those different ways, and I will get out and work with them and let them know that I'm there with them. So that's really important to me, that they know that. I try to be as accessible as possible. As my job has gotten a lot busier, I've had to cut that off a little bit. The grants that I've gotten, I always said I had like a 125% job without the grants, and with the grants it's more like 150. So I stay very busy with that, and sometimes I'll only be able to communicate with them by email if there are issues, but I make a point to get back to people as quickly as I can, because it may be something that is critical to their own operation. So I tend to be prompt that way. I'd like to come up with a little bit more free time. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that as it gets busier. One of the things with the budget situation at MATC is that a lot of people have either left or positions haven't been replaced, and so it becomes more on the rest of us. I'm not going to let my end slip, but I also have 2 kids, and I'd like to be able to see them once in a while. So that's kind of the management style, I guess.
Okay.
I'm Cindy Henning. I oversee the exercise science program, and I also teach an exercise science program, and I'm starting my 3rd year here at the college.
Okay.
And my question is, how do you ensure that all faculty are held to the same, to the same standards of accountability?
It's difficult to do, but what I want to make sure is in the coaching process that you know, if there's something that comes to my attention that I feel a faculty isn't doing, or something that I see that I think the faculty could be doing, those are the types of things that should be brought up in coaching, and then they can be put on a plan to make sure that this is happening. It would also depend on what your current structure is, you know, whether there is a policy for dealing with this now, or if there's something that might need to be put into place. You know, you all are going to be going through a lot of changes here soon as all of this reorganization takes place. You'll have, it's sounding like different supervisors, or some groups could be under different deans, and I think that would be something that I would want to work with the deans to see how faculty are coached in those areas. Are there new coaching tools that might need to be done as well? There's something out there that we've just started implementing at MATC called 360 evaluations, and I'm still kind of trying to decide what I think about those, because I haven't seen a whole cycle of it yet to see. But you know, we're all, I guess another management thing is teamwork, and I believe in being part of a team, and I get along much better with team players, and would like to think that when we are evaluating teachers, evaluating other administrators, that we are all focused on the same goal. So I'd want to make sure that was happening in a coaching process. How they are held accountable, I really, at this point, wouldn't say until I had a better idea of what the system is here and kind of got to know people. When Hillary Clinton was running for U.S. Senate from New York, and she embarked on what she called a listening tour, and I think that would be my first thing to do here for a month or so is just go out and talk with people and get to know them and get to know the college. And I'm not going to pretend to say that I have the best answer at this point without really knowing what the college is all about.
Well, first on your listening tour, this lady has a lot to say. You didn't tell them who you were, Christian.
I'm sorry, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Kimberly Fields, English instructor. And I'm wondering how you deal with animosity. You mentioned that the college is going through a lot of change. And so when you have conflicts, say, between people in different divisions who don't like each other, or animosity between administration and faculty, or animosity between faculty and staff, how do you help to resolve that? Because we have a lot of animosity. So how do you, speaking for myself, I have experienced animosity. How do you help that? How do you build morale?
Okay. I bet we could beat you.
Yeah, they do have a union school, remember? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We have a union school, and we have a governor that just declared collective
That's right,
bargaining
yeah, that's
out the
right,
window.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been tense times there. It depends on what the situation is. There are some things that I can sit down with one teacher. A lot of times when I'm dealing with this, say between teachers, is I will talk with them privately because I want to know what's going on and make suggestions. In other cases, I will sit down with the two of them together. I have a situation where I have an educational assistant that's not doing what he needs to for the microbiology instructors. And we finally, the group of us sat down, because this is another thing in a union school, is that teachers don't like to say things about other union members. And I finally said, look, I'm not a microbiologist, and you are the ones who know what's going wrong up there, and you need to be in this meeting so we can get this figured out. So we were able to have a productive meeting. Hopefully the educational assistant didn't feel ganged up on. I had talked with him briefly afterwards, and I said, let's move on with this, but here's where changes need to be made. It really just depends on the situation. We've had, again, I mentioned tense times. We had tough times when the statewide curriculum alignment took place, and a lot of the programs in our college were feeling kind of threatened because I mentioned we're going to lose plumber's math, we're going to lose carpenter's math, and all of these courses that were exactly for my program, and now we have to be more general, and they were unhappy about that. And I went to the meetings and I explained to them how this was working, that everybody was having to implement this. Here was the reason why. If you had any questions, let me know. You know, I did everything that I could to try and make sure they had enough information so that their concerns would be alleviated somewhat. I believe in talking to people first. I don't want things to sit there and fester if we can possibly help it. And so I would try and work things out that way. First, anyway.
Earlier, we had a question asking what your experience with Phi Theta Kappa might be.
I haven't had any experience with that group.
All right. Somebody else I know. Did you have some? Yes?
Yes, actually, one other question, and this kind of goes back to my question about advisory boards, is Kim, what experience do you have with post-assessment after they're placed in the workforce?
That particular function at my college is handled by our research division. So I'll always see the results from that, and then once we do see the results, that is something that we take back to the advisory committees to discuss. In some cases, we have been able to, well, I'll say Chemtech, for example. We've been able to make some changes there when we were finding that students weren't having a good experience with a certain employer because of some of the additional expectations they had on training. And we were actually able to build a little bit more of that into our courses. So I see those as learning experiences when you get that post-assessment that could be used maybe the same way that a student outcomes assessment would in making, hopefully not major, but maybe some tweaks that would help a little bit in the program. I know students will also talk about the teachers that they had and who made a difference and what they did that made a difference. And these are the types of things that I have taken back to my departments when I've read certain things. Usually it'll be a smaller program where there'll be one or two teachers that really worked with these students to get them ready to go out into the workforce. But I certainly believe in sharing the good news with teachers, and a lot of it that we get out of these reports. I don't know how people really get down and read them. But I was reading yours here the other night because I was interested to see how students were doing when they got out into the community and what they felt about their experience in here. And it looked pretty good for the most part.
What's your experience with building academic buildings, construction stuff? Yeah, besides the math for carpenters class, yeah.
Right, okay.
Beyond that, yeah.
We have been really fortunate in the past about 7-8 years to have gotten a lot of money from the college for building new labs. Our labs looked like something out of Happy Days. Probably they were.
And was this brand new construction?
Brand new construction,
okay.
Right. So and you're not talking about like a whole building, right?
Just yeah, no, I'm talking a whole building. Yeah.
No, you haven't done whole buildings. We've done entire wings that we have modified and put in these new labs. But I'm trying to think. I don't think there's been a new building even at MATC since I've been there.
Okay. I have another question. Okay, hang on. PE person,
I'm feeling a lot of animosity towards Kim right now. We're going to meet at the bike racks after this. No, my question is, how do you see your position in relation to the Vice President of Student Services, which is also a newly hired person, to help our college move forward?
I think one of the exciting things about this position, and the more that I hear about all of the changes, and you have a new president as well, I think it would be great to work with the new Vice President of Student Services because there's just such an opportunity to bring some new perspectives in, but I also want to make sure that we're still paying attention to the people are here who would have to undergo this change. I work very closely with Student Services in my position because I'm constantly in communication with what are they, counselors, to make sure that they are aware of changes going on in my area. During registration time, I am down in the registration area to talk to students, and we find out that we're really short on classes in some areas, and what can we do to help. So we do a lot of outreach that way. I have worked with them also to try and put together better advising packets, or information I should say, for teachers. So we have this up on the website. Because we have so many math courses and they serve different programs and divisions in different ways, we got a really good flow chart put together with all the information that we needed. It's actually a 4-page flow chart because there's one for each of the divisions that shows how the math progression would work in their division, and it really helps with advising. And they liked that so much that we had to put together one for science, which was a lot harder because it's spread out more. And then English decided they liked it, so they picked up one too. So all of that is in Student Services. We're getting ready with the new advising liaisons, or the advising center, which we haven't had before. So I work to make sure that their people were trained and up to speed on the math, especially because it's complex with the advising on that one. We've worked at looking at placement scores for new students coming in. Did these need to be adjusted? Whenever DataTel, and I understand you're a DataTel school as well, when there are changes that need to be made because, for example, we put in prereq enforcement, which we hadn't had before. This required a patch to the DataTel system, so I was working with the IT people who support registration and student services to make sure that all of this was going to work. So I'm involved with them in a number of different ways. Financial aid, I was working with them on, what was it? The lending policy for selecting lenders for our students, and work with the wait list when we decided that students were getting really unhappy because they couldn't find courses, and by implementing the wait list, we were able to determine where the demand was so that we could put out courses that would meet that demand. So, I mean, if you're in academics and you don't work with student services, you're forgetting about the students in a lot of ways. So, I would expect my job to be tied in very closely with hers.
One of the questions that we got prior to this forum, we've kind of touched on a little bit. It's about distance learning, and this person wanted to know if you'd be willing to take a look at the whole distance learning system that we have. We talked at breakfast that we're going to be getting a new learning management system. But one part I don't think you've really talked about is how do you think that distance learning teams should be selected, should be composed? This would be the instructional designers and all that. How should they be compensated, and what kind of oversight? So I don't know without.
Oh, okay. Well, we
so
kind of addressed some of that before.
And maybe if you could just sort of, how do you think that? Let's just talk about the composition of the distance learning team and how should they be evaluated and compensated?
Okay. I'm not sure if, I'm trying to remember in what I've read, if you have an actual office or center for distance learning here. You do have one? Okay. Okay. I think it's something if that we were talking about organization or reorganization, and it was something too we were mentioning at breakfast this morning about resources for faculty, and I was mentioning the Faculty Innovation Center that we have. That's something I could kind of see tied in there because the development of courses is going to be something that a Faculty Innovation Center could support. But I could also see distance learning. I don't know where students come in to test for those who don't test online and how all of that is taken care of, because I mentioned my math group that absolutely will not test online and wants to see them come in, and I have a physics teacher the same way. And I respect their need to make sure that they can test students the way that they want to. So I would want to take a look at what the existing resources are and also look at how we can then develop faculty. I mentioned the online training courses that I've had that I think are wonderful, and I think that would be a starting point too in terms of getting a good online system set up. Distance learning isn't just online. If we are looking at two-way video, for example, there are ways that you can pull in high school students, say, for your calculus courses through setting aside a place for them at their high school, and they can come and don't have to be off campus to be able to take the course. We just ended a grant where we were providing associate in arts degrees to incarcerated individuals around the country. And I wish that was still going on. It was just a tremendous thing, and I was able to actually go to one of the prisons in Wisconsin and watch the first student graduating out of that program and where he's able to go. We used to have College of the Air. I think online has kind of taken over for that, but I would like to take a look at what other existing resources or medium you have for distance education. Online is the biggest. Compensation, I mentioned already. I really think it depends on circumstances. If it was something that is very important to the college, if it's a new program, something that we might be able to set aside money for, then I could see a person being compensated for that. But otherwise, if you can work out release time, if you can work out an ownership, something of the course, it just depends.
Okay. Gosh, we got probably 1 minute. Is it a 1 minute, Paula, question? but see, Chatty Cathy behind you has another question. So Paula, yeah, you got it. Yeah, it's on.
Okay. It's not a 1 minute question, I'm sorry. You may have heard or seen that one of our outstanding opportunities for improvement with AQUIP had to do with how we assess student learning. And I was wondering your experiences with setting up or overseeing or working with a system or a process for how do you know at your college now that students are learning, and how do you use your system to actually make improvements? Do you have any examples of things that you've learned from your assessments and how you've taken it back into the classroom to improve student learning, and how you got buy-in for people to do that?
I think if you could tell them about the math thing that you told us at breakfast. Yeah.
Math thing I told you at breakfast.
About the remedial math and
right.
Because they took the data and
right. We were using information from our student outcomes assessment in determining how we could make some modifications to our remedial math, and this was to our pre-algebra course. And one of the big things was that we knew that our students our teachers who were requiring homework in their classes were having better success with their students than those who weren't. And as a result of this, and we were trying to figure out a way to do this because there was teachers would make, that many copies a semester of homework that they had to pass out. They then had to grade, and it was becoming really cumbersome, and we weren't getting the buy-in from teachers that we wanted to on that. So they started looking at what Pearson Learning had available through my math lab, and at the time they were able to tie it into Blackboard, and this was the students could do their online homework. And what we found is that students, again, with this online homework, were performing much better in class than those who weren't. So then the next step from there was trying to get all of the teachers on board. We have some who are really computer challenged, and it took a lot of effort from both the teacher who was spearheading this, and then ultimately the Pearson representative, who I don't know how many times she spent with one instructor who was 80 years old to try and get him up to speed. Ultimately, I have to say in that case, we just assigned him to a different class because he just wasn't up to the computer demands of that particular one. But we're about to have several training sessions I guess this is the end of this month. I think there's one today maybe. And then a couple in early August for all of the teachers of this pre-algebra course. And in fact, the same software is being used with our intermediate algebra course that the publisher reps will be in to make sure that everybody's up to speed. They've even promised if the teacher absolutely couldn't make one of these, they'll meet with them one-on-one, because we really want to make sure that we have everybody on board. But that's been as a result of the student outcomes assessment that we learned that.
Thank you so much. Our time has come to an end.
It's 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah, exactly. Kim will be meeting with various groups this afternoon, but then we'll be back in this room at 5:30 to 6:30 for another open forum that will also be streamed live. So thank you so much for returning to Wyoming, it sounds like, right? And
yes.
So thank all of you guys as well.
Thank you. It was good to hear what you're interested in.